Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, President Trump arrives at the southern border for an immigration roundtable.
Can't take you anymore. I'm sorry. Can't happen. So turn around. That's the way it is.
What he's calling for after backing off his threats to shut down the southern border. Local officials meet to discuss the decades-long problem of sewage coming into San Diego beaches from Mexico. An update on the pollution. Hundreds rally demanding more funding for people with mental and physical disabilities. A full report on the demonstration. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, April 5th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. President Trump travels to Calexico to hold a roundtable on border security. Afterwards, he toured an updated border wall. KPBS reporter Jean Guerrero was at the meeting as the president discussed immigration.
I'm standing in front of the Calexico Border Patrol Station, where President Trump spoke earlier today, saying there's an absolute emergency at the border. He said the United States is full and that there's no more room. He says he's willing to close the border to address what he calls the emergency, but he says it may not be necessary because Mexico over the past few days has been increasingly nice. Here's what he had to say.
I want to also thank Mexico because Mexico, and I'm totally willing to close the border, but Mexico of the last 4 days has done more than they've ever done. We were talking about that before, Kevin. They're apprehending people now by the thousands.
But the fact is, Mexico has been apprehending people at its southern border since the Obama administration. Earlier today, there were protesters flying a Trump baby balloon that they hoped would send a message to Trump that they are opposed to his policies. We also had supporters lined up outside of the Border Patrol station expressing their support for President Trump's policies. Calexico Border Patrol was here saying that the border wall works, that there's been a decrease in assaults against agents and a decrease in apprehensions since the new section went up here. President Trump says that by the end of 2020, there will be more than 450 miles of new wall built at the U.S.-Mexico border. Reporting from Calexico, Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Immigration isn't the only reason for activity at the border. Local officials gathered in Imperial Beach today to address cross-border pollution. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson gives us an update on the flow of sewage coming in from Tijuana.
State, local, and Mexican officials spent several hours speaking frankly about the cross-border sewage flows that have fouled U.S. coastal waters for decades. Imperial Beach's ocean waters have been off limits for human contact for more than half of the year because of sewage issues.
This program is known as the California-Mexico Strategic Dialogue.
Assemblymember Todd Gloria welcomed the discussions as a way to find common solutions to a common problem.
We want to prioritize this. I want the people of Imperial Beach, Coronado, Tijuana, San Diego to understand that this is a priority. And while other leaders may use the border as an opportunity to distract and to divide, we want to use it as an opportunity to convene and to advance.
The U.S. federal government is facing 3 lawsuits asking for solutions to the water contamination issue, but the issue also affects those living south of the U.S.-Mexico border. Manny Rodriguez is a Tijuana City Council member. He says there are environmental impacts in his city, too.
We're the ones being punished by these things that are not being fixed. We have health issues in Mexico. We have an ocean, a sand that is mixed with sludge. We have toxic waste running through the corp of the body of the river, of the Tijuana River.
Rodriguez says those problems all require solutions, and he's hopeful the next national and state elections in Mexico will bring change. He says the problem will not fix itself.
Today's weather is an example of why this is an ongoing problem. The rain that is hitting the area today is bringing runoff into the Tijuana River estuary. That'll move through the estuary and out into the ocean and will likely be carrying pollution. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
KPBS now has officer discipline records from the first 8 local police departments that had withheld records pending a lawsuit. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar joins us now to tell us more. And Priya, why are these records so controversial?
Ebony, this is all about the new state law that requires law enforcement agencies to release records of officers investigated for police shootings and use of force, officers who were investigated for sexual assault, or any officer who lied during an investigation. The law went into effect on January 1st, but 8 local police unions sued their departments, saying records from before 2019 should not be released. Ultimately, a judge ruled the law applied to all records. Now, National City was the first of those 8 departments to release their records.
And Priya, what did you find in the National City records?
Ebony, these records were about a National City police officer who shot and killed an unarmed 19-year-old man in 2001. Now, at the time, it was very controversial. Protesters marched through the city and demanded the California Attorney General get involved. Here's what the report tells us. The man had dropped a gun and took off when the officer began chasing him. Later, the officer believed the man still had a weapon and fired a shot that ultimately killed him. The district attorney said the shooting was not in violation of state law, but the officer was put on administrative leave by the National City Police Department and later fired. The report also said that while running away from police to avoid arrest and concealing a weapon is illegal, it was not reasonable for the officer to fire a shot at the suspect. The officer violated National City Police's use of force policy, and that's ultimately why he was fired.
So what other departments still have yet to turn over their records?
So El Cajon just released their records today, but as of today, KPBS and the 5 other media outlets that have been fighting to have this information released to the public are still waiting on records from Carlsbad, Oceanside, Coronado, Harbor Patrol, San Diego Schools, and San Diego PD. Now, of course, we'll continue to update you on air and online as soon as we get them. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
Great job. Thanks, Priya. Hundreds rallied this afternoon to protect the independence of those with developmental and intellectual disabilities. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains their demands.
Hear my voice! Hear my voice!
Hundreds of people are here downtown today rallying for more money to help people with developmental and intellectual disabilities.
We have programs closing throughout the state. We have services not being able to be provided to people with disabilities.
Anthony DeSalis is president and CEO of the Arc of San Diego, which supports over 2,000 people. He says services for those with disabilities are underfunded.
All it takes at this point in time from our Assembly, from our Senate, and from our governor is to approve an 8% across-the-board rate increase for the providers here in San Diego. So what do we want? Can we say it again? 8%!
Service providers say many of their employees working with people who have disabilities are making minimum wage.
We have a hard time retaining staff, which are the angels of this movement. They work tirelessly to support people to live their best lives, and we can't keep them nor retain them. And the ones that stay, they're living in poverty.
Keep the promise! Keep the promise!
People can find a job out in the fast food industry or Costco or Walmart that are all paying higher than us, and it's much less demanding work because we're asking people to work with people with disabilities, to help them in their jobs, to help them in their homes, to help them in day services, to develop more independence.
If more funding isn't secured, programs that help people with disabilities could be slashed.
You know, I've been doing this for 40 years, and we are in crisis. If we don't see these rate increases, I know my organization will be cutting programs and cutting services.
We have support from Assembly members. We have support from senators. Now it's time to make sure that Governor Newsom also hears the issue and understands what we need.
Service providers say majority of their funding comes from the state and some from the federal government.
Yes!
Providers say the additional funds would be used to protect existing programs and pay staff livable wages. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Providers say an 8% increase statewide would be an additional $290 million. Sharp Grossmont Hospital is apologizing after being sued for recording more than 1,000 women without their consent. From 2012 to 2013, the hospital installed surveillance cameras in multiple operating rooms in the Women's Health Center. The cameras were put in place after the hospital found sedatives were being taken. Dozens of women filed a lawsuit last month. Last night, a top Sharp official apologized and said the surveillance method will not be used again. Community members in City Heights are using murals to beautify the San Diego neighborhood. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto says they're now tapping youth to lend a hand.
You won't miss the Treasure Trove antique store on University Avenue, thanks to its new mural of cartoon teacups and pastel flowers.
I'm a Disney fan, so I kind of hit the Disney theme.
17-year-old Mimi Gonzalez Martinez designed and painted the artwork as part of the Avenue Mural Project.
When we first started painting this, people were passing by in their cars, be like, "Oh, nice job," and just screaming out the window, "It's so pretty."
The volunteer-led mural initiative aims to beautify the area that's often hit by graffiti. It has helped organize more than a dozen murals on buildings, walls, and at a school in City Heights. Gonzalez Martinez's artwork is one of 2 recent installations painted by youth under the mentorship of a professional artist.
Well, we wanted to get together with the youth since the very beginning.
Avenue Mural Project co-founder Carlos Quezada says teen artists are key to the project. Gonzalez Martinez and a 14-year-old that painted dancing fruit on a restaurant aren't actually from City Heights, but Quezada says he hopes to eventually involve youth from the area that are actually tagging the community.
So if we get them involved and make them feel like they own this community, then we're going to be able to have more art as opposed to cleaning up graffiti.
The effort hasn't eliminated graffiti. Even some murals have been hit. That includes one painted by Quezada and co-founder Edwin Lohr that they had to recently fix. Still, Lohr says he wants to involve the youth behind that kind of vandalism and even pay them.
My goal would be to hire the taggers. I mean, if that would be my ultimate goal, is to get them on our side and beautify their community.
In the meantime, the mural initiative is gaining momentum. Before, it was unfunded, and the co-founders largely relied on volunteer artists or reaching into their own pockets to cover costs. Now, they've raised $13,000, and artists are requesting to join the effort.
Because we didn't know that was going to happen, and now that happens. We're getting requests, "Hey, can I do a wall? Can I do a wall? Can I do a wall?"
The biggest challenge is finding property owners to offer their walls as a canvas. But they are already working on their next mural at a local pawn shop. For Gonzalez Martinez, the experience let her live out a dream.
My main goal is just to bring happiness and just cuteness to the world.
She wants to be a freelance artist like her mentor and hopes to find an opportunity to paint another mural. Taryn Minto, KPBS News.
Price Philanthropies provided funding for the Avenue Mural Project and is a KPBS supporter. The Conrad Prebys Performing Arts Center opens in La Jolla, becoming the new home for the La Jolla Music Society. KPBS arts reporter Nina Guerin is there now for the celebration. Hey there, Nina.
Hi, Ebony. I'm here in La Jolla at the Conrad. It's a new arts center in La Jolla. Everyone's really excited about it, the music community, the artistic community. And I'm going to speak with 2 of the musicians performing tonight. First, I am here with Wu Han. You're a pianist.
Yes, I am.
And can you please tell me what a center like this means to San Diego?
Oh my goodness, I am the artistic director for Lincoln Center Chamber Music Society. And I have traveled 280 days every year to play concerts. I've been to many beautiful cities, beaches, mountains, great restaurants, great community. But once you have a performing arts center, that's a game changer. You immediately elevate the status of a particular area. You have a platform for the community to gather, for everybody to enjoy each other's company, to appreciate the finest thing that human can offer. This is the food for your community's mind and for their soul. And it's just so important. As a musician, we are just so excited. We're already rehearsing there. It's the most beautiful hall, very intimate, great acoustic. And I can't wait to get on stage and make some music, and I'm sure this is going to be the most prestigious stage in the West Coast.
Wonderful. That's very exciting. I'm going to now speak with William Fedkenhuizer. Fedkin Hoyer.
Fedkin Hoyer, yeah.
Great, and you're a musician, you're a violinist?
Yeah, I'm a violinist in the Moreau Quartet, and tonight I'll be playing both with the quartet and then also with ukulele sensation Jake Shimabukuro, who's amazing, and it's an amazing experience both to have Jake here, but to also hear all of the different types of instrumentation that we'll have on stage tonight.
And you've performed in the center already. Can you tell us a little bit about the acoustics?
Yeah, well, it's very special when you get this level of concert hall. It becomes very much a part of the organic instrument of us as we play. And we were listening, I got to listen to Wuhan rehearse a little bit today, and you can hear people whispering as quiet as possible. And so on the artistic level, you can really take your sound down. You can have all of these nuances that really actually then carry throughout the hall rather than just for the benefit of yourself. And so it really raises the level of expectation and possibility for what happens in a concert.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And here we are at the Conrad, and back to you, Ebony.
Thanks, Nina. The Conrad Prebys Foundation is also a KPBS funder. If you think you need to travel for hours to see beautiful blooms, think again. You can find some right here in San Diego. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar shows us where.
Ooh, there's a yucca starting to bloom. That's exciting.
To say that Ranger Heidi Gutnick loves flowers is quite the understatement.
Oh, there's Fiesta flower there. Cool. I don't know if you want any Fiesta. Ooh, lots of it. Look at it all. Wow.
For 14 years, Gutnick has been working the trails at Mission Trails Regional Park.
We'll put you on the other side, love. It's okay. Come here, baby. Oh. Oh, I know. It's okay.
And her favorite time of the year at the park is spring. She says the two signs that spring is here are snakes and flowers.
I guess just what they represent, it's just, spring, just in general, they're kind of like the classic announcement, if you will, that it's springtime. And so it's kind of nice with like the explosion of all the flowers and stuff. It just kind of represents like, life.
This year is especially exciting. She says she's seen the most poppies during her career at the park.
This has got to be obviously because of all the extra rains that we had. It is definitely kind of like for us a super bloom, if you will. And like I said, it started more than a couple weeks ago. So some of them are already actually phasing out, but there's new ones I'm noticing every week. You'll see new flowers that weren't there the previous week.
She says there are more than 100 different species of flowers in the almost 6,000-acre park.
Here you can see the orange.
In this year's Super Bloom, you can see anything from a desert wishbone bush to a windmill pink flower to a San Diego sunflower. These are photos some of the dedicated volunteers at the park have taken over the past few weeks.
And then there's some of the San Diego sunflowers. See, there's a big difference between the two.
For Gutnick, getting to share her passion for flowers with the influx of visitors this spring has been a treat.
Nature nerd,
She hopes more San Diegans take a chance to get outside, enjoy the sun, and the city's own super bloom. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
The ranger says the best way to get a glimpse of the blooms is to go for a hike on one of the park's many trails. You can find out more information at kpbs.org.
Bit of a gloomy day across San Diego County, but as you notice on your satellite and radar, lots of moisture to our north. We continue to track out a disturbance that's going to continue to bring rain into California. As for us here in San Diego tonight, lots of clouds, still some shower potential with a low of 59, cooling down to 51 in Oceanside, 57 in Borrego Springs, mostly cloudy skies there, as well as in Mount Laguna with a low of 41. Now, as we take you into your futurecast, starting off tonight, 6 p.m., lots of clouds available. Precipitation chances are going to be very scattered as you head past midnight. So into the 1, 2, 3, and 5 o'clock hours, some shower activity likely at this particular time, Saturday, 9 a.m. not looking at tons of showers, but definitely looking at tons of clouds coming your way. We will start to notice a drier pattern for Southern California. Wet conditions continue to press their way through the Four Corners. Low pressure moves through the Four Corners, eventually making its way into Texas. So that's where we start to see some more wet weather developing. Still going to be looking at the chance for rain to our north, but here at home, we'll get high pressure building on, and might not seem like it because the clouds stick around in Oceanside and San Diego with highs in the upper 60s, 80 in Borrego Springs, and 53 in Mount Laguna. As you head further inland, even out towards the higher ground, better chance for that sun to really unveil itself. Now, early next week, we're still going to be looking at a pretty dry forecast across the southwest here, but we won't be as warm compared to some places this weekend. We take you into your extended forecast at the coast. Tomorrow, a high of 67 tomorrow, and then Sunday, a high of 71. Will remain in the 70s for your extended forecast. Lots of sunshine for the middle of the week. Warm air really noticeable Monday in the inland areas. Be sure to stay hydrated. Then cooling down slightly into your Tuesday. Also going to see a slight cool down from Monday to Tuesday in the deserts. Monday a high of 95 and Tuesday a high of 87. And then for your mountain areas into the upper 60s on Monday, feeling cooler with a bit more winds in place on your Tuesday. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
It's Friday, and it's the time that we talk about this week's business news impacting our region. And for the Friday Business Report, we're joined now by Miro Kopik with SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing. Welcome.
Thank you.
So this week, President Trump made threats to shut down the border. And although he's backing away from threats to immediately shut down the border, a lot of people are still concerned. What would the impact be?
The impact would be huge on many levels. We do over $600 billion of trade with Mexico a year as a country. California alone does $75 billion, and just here in San Diego, we have $6 billion of positive impact on trade. Just to give you a perspective, the Otay Mesa border crossing is the second largest, most busy border crossing for trucks northbound all along the U.S. border. Almost 1 million trucks cross that border on an annual basis, which means 2,700 trucks per day go north and deliver goods and services or goods from 1 to 3 days to different parts of the country. This is a major issue, and if you stop that, it's going to wreak havoc on the supply chains of businesses across the board. And if we think about the auto industry, which is a major issue here, there's a product that Mexico makes. They make 70% of all the wire harnesses that go into autos. And a wire harness is connectors and wires that connect the power supply system of a car. So 70% of those are made in Mexico, 12% are made in Central America. If you shut that southern border, the car industry shuts down within a week.
So moving on, Amazon is actually cutting cost of products for Whole Foods, trying to get Amazon Prime users to, I guess, shop there. Is it enough?
I think Amazon finally is finding an industry that is really difficult. That, they looked at it, it's a $900 billion industry, the grocery industry, but it's so different from shipping books or clothes or electronics products. You're dealing with food and perishable items that consumers have very peculiar ways of, I want a ripe product, I want a less ripe product. And so what Amazon did is they thought, we're just going to target our Amazon Prime customers, and they have 100 million of them. So that would be fantastic. The problem is, Whole Foods has a bad reputation among consumers as being known as whole paycheck. So it's very expensive. And most Amazon Prime members, just by the virtue they have Amazon Prime, are value shoppers. They're going to the Walmarts, they're going to the dollar stores, and competition in this space has grown exponentially in the last couple of years. Amazon is not going to stop. So they're going to take prices down over 20% across the board in most of the wholesale Whole Foods stores, and they're going to double the amount of discounts they're going to offer Amazon Prime customers. But I think it's going to be a long slog for Amazon going forward.
And lastly, a Gallup poll found that Americans are struggling to pay their medical bills, even borrowing $88 billion last year just to cover the cost. With the unemployment rate so low, what's going on?
This is, without getting into the whole healthcare debate, it's scary to understand how this impacts the average American. So if you look at that, that's 32 million Americans, 1 in 8 Americans, are borrowing to pay their medical costs. That averages out to about $2,800 per individual. Now, on top of that, 65 million people don't do medical procedures because they can't afford it, and another 60 million actually cut back on other things to pay for medical procedures. So all of a sudden, you have 157 million people out of 253 million adults that are struggling. So 62% of Americans struggle to pay for health care. That's a major issue. And even though some surveys said Americans are happy with their healthcare system, if you really break it down between asking them, are they happy with their doctors or healthcare providers, or are they happy with their insurance company, I would suspect there'd be totally different answers. So Americans are really concerned. And the last point that I'd like to make is that 45% of all Americans say that if they have a major medical expense, they could face bankruptcy. And that's including 1 out of 3 households that make up to $180,000 a year. So even the upper middle class is concerned that healthcare expenses can really bankrupt them financially.
Well, that's a scary place to end, but that wraps up our Friday Business Report. Miro, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ebony.
Our border shutdown would impact San Diego's economy. The military responds to complaints about housing at Camp Pendleton, and new steps taken to reduce suicides on the Coronado Bridge. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.